We're on.
You're ready.
Okay, I'd like to call this meeting on May 17th for the curriculum committee to order. Let it be known that all our members are here with Katie Dosler and with myself and with Joan Ensign. And we need approval of the agenda.
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I don't think we have any public comments, so I'd like to turn it over to Tim and Schoology, what it is and how we use it.
Thank you, Mark. So Schoology came up at the last meeting, and the best way to explain what it is and how we use it is to have our two educators who are closest to it, Courtney Lovell from the high school and Alec Kartz from the middle school, who are ed tech specialists for those two schools, walk you through it a bit. And so we have Courtney and Alec here today. Excited they could join us. You'll see them also for the AI part. So it's a big afternoon for them. And
Thank you both for taking your time to share your information with us.
And so I think you can drive with that mouse there.
So Alec and I put together just kind of a brief, some clips, some snapshots of what Schoology looks like from the teacher standpoint, from the student perspective, and then the parent perspective. So you can kind of have an idea of what our teachers use it for, how our students are using it. We decided to go with the screenshots just to kind of protect a little bit of student privacy. So, right. So from the teacher portal, teachers are able to have their classes be singletons, so individual, or here you can see, for example, our advanced algebra group, they have all of those courses, all of those sections, excuse me, are linked together. So basically one teacher can be the driver and the creator for all of the sections all together all at once to kind of create that collaboration piece. And then from there, they can post content like course materials, their syllabus. They can also create different, so more here. They can create quizzes, they can create assignments, and really put all of their instructional materials in here for students to access outside of school and within school. So this has been really helpful for when staff are out, they're able to post things here for students to work on when they're gone. Assignments can get posted here. We have teachers that give tests and quizzes in class online here. And some of the really nice features are some of these things auto grade for our teachers, and then some of them require the teacher to go in and read responses, and assess scores. They can use traditional scoring or point scoring or rubric scoring as far as giving feedback. So this is an example of the grade book within Schoology. You can see all of the assignments here. You can see all of the student scores that are there. And then for the courses that are linked together, if course section teachers choose to do that, they're actually able to go between. So there are instances where one teacher might say, hey, I'm not really sure about what would be your take on this student's work? And they can log, they can see each other's work. So really creates a good collaboration piece for those content teams. They're also able, teachers can send out messages they can send that to parents, they can send it to students, they can send it to both. You can send out reminders about upcoming assignments, due dates, quizzes, tests, things like that. So that's kind of the teacher side.
So before you go to
Yeah.
can we ask questions maybe?
Absolutely.
That way, so if you're creating tests or quizzes outside of Schoology, it accepts it from multiple platforms.
So teachers can, the places where the applications that create the tests and quizzes are Schoology specific.
Okay.
They can create assignments within Google Docs and have those linked in for students, so when it gets assigned to a student and they open that Google Doc, it creates the students almost like a copy for the student automatically. But the tests and quizzes are built directly in school.
And does it integrate with AI? Or not yet?
Not yet.
Okay. And then the last thing, do all teachers use this or is it voluntary?
So it's the expectation that all of our teachers are using this. This is kind of our
7/12.
7/12.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is our learning platform for our teachers to share with families and students. So
Okay, great.
so it's
Thank you.
consistent.
And I'll talk a little bit about the student portal. Yeah, I'll take the mouse, take control. So it's gonna look kind of similar. So this is an example of a course dashboard for a student. So they can log in. We have it bookmarked nicely for the students. They logged in with their Google account, and then all of their courses are all automatically enrolled in those courses. So we can see this student is in all these courses. The teachers can throw a little picture up top or give it a little bit easier to see what subject or what class that it is. So if the kid shows up in art class, they can log in, click on the dashboard, click on art, it will take them to their art page there. And then it's also nice because we can do extracurriculars. So this student was a part of the Matilda musical. So the student is enrolled in that course in Infinite Campus. And then you can set it up to create classes. And then same thing like you can do for, you're not going to be grading assignments for the musical, but posting announcements, posting schedule, getting feedback on on like when are we doing this or whatnot. That can be done in there as well.
Is this available to our coaches too, or just club like advisors?
Volleyball, I think so it has to be like set up in an Infinite Campus. I don't know if at the high school, how much they're using it. I think it kind of varies. It could be. It's definitely capable of being set up for all different sports. I know volleyball, I was talking to a teacher, I think she maybe uses it a little bit. So it kind of varies, but because the kids are going to be enrolled in football or whatever in Infinite Campus, and we can turn on a course there. So it's a little probably sport by sport.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, so we can see that. That's kind of that dashboard, that homepage or like a homepage. And then this is like a feed. So it's a recent activity feed. So we can see announcements that the teacher or different teacher posts. So this is an agriculture about an upcoming meeting. This one's the student was in student council. So there's a penny war fundraiser. Let's sign up for it. We have some spots to fill this fundraiser there. Orchestra there. You can also, this is our counselor posting to the whole 7th grade saying, hey, we got our elective forms due in a couple days. Let's make sure you got that filled out. So it's kind of like a feed of announcement like Facebook or anything else. And then over here on the right side, we have a to-do list. So these are based on the teacher created assignments. We can see actually we have an overdue assignment up here, but then they're arranged by due date. And this is all the courses that student has. So we have an ELA one coming up in a few days. And then you click on this assignment, it'll take you to that assignment. You can work on it. You can submit it all within Schoology there.
Are those assignments in there because of a teacher putting there, or do the students have to put anything?
Yeah, the teacher is going to put in those
Okay,
assignments.
those are all automatically set in.
Yeah, so it's all
It's
kind of.
hard for the kids to say, I didn't know.
Exactly.
The good old days. I didn't know.
And so, yeah, this is just one specific course page, social studies course page. So this is very similar to what the teacher has created. So social studies contact information and they have like assignments, links. And so these are the assignments just for social studies. And then the teacher can control which like assignments are like turned on or like available to see for the students. So you can like get stuff ready, plan ahead, and then, oh, it's Monday, I'm gonna post these assignments. So it's a little bit different than what the teacher would see, but very similar. The students can see grades as well, updates and all that here. And I think one last thing, we got like a calendar view. So on the homepage there, students can navigate to the calendar, and this is all automatically done based on those due dates that the teacher put in. That we can see, hey, I got a science quiz coming up in a few days, or hey, we're working on this math assignment in a couple days, that's gonna be due. Oh, I'm supposed to be reading for 30 minutes a day. Working on different French assignments, so that's a good view. You can do a month, you can do a week, you can do a day, to kind of get a sense of how it's look. If you're really
So
on
I
top.
didn't know isn't an option anymore.
Yeah, exactly. They'll still try it, but,
Yeah.
and you can like, if you're really on top of it, like you can add because this is all coming from the assignments, but you can add your own assignments. You can put in your soccer practice, you can put something in there if you like. I don't know how many students are that organized, but it's.
Then can that calendar link to, let's say your book, like your phone calendar?
I think, I was just looking, I think I could pull in a calendar to it.
Into the,
Yeah.
this can't pull
I
it
don't
out.
think so, yeah,
I was just curious.
yeah, that's a good point.
So, but the kids talking about their own individual phones, I know that we're one-to-one and they have
Mhm.
a device. But can they access this just through the website on their phone?
I think it probably works best on a Chromebook, just from like access, like if you're typing in a document that's gonna be small and crunched up, or might not show up as well, or the calendar might look a little, so I think it is possible. I don't know how much
There is a student app up, that students can download and log in,
Okay,
and they have access to all of the content. It's small,
Yeah.
yeah.
but some of them
But-
will
Yeah.
not get that.
Right, some of them, and a lot of the kids at the high school are pretty familiar with how to use their, that app for, turning in assignments. Sometimes it's as simple as clicking on the link that they want to upload, and that's, but for the most part, most of them use it.
And this might be an unrelated question, maybe Tim might know, but I know the high school is working on a cell phone policy. So as we're creating that policy, will that take into consideration how they access Schoology on their phone versus on their Chromebook? I know like in math, oftentimes they have to scan in their assignment from their phone and then submit it. So I was just curious about, I mean, thinking ahead, because I know next year they're working through that. I don't know if that will impact how they learn in their classrooms or.
Yeah, I mean, I think, what's been shared here is there is an app for Schoology, and, if it makes sense for students to use it out of school, out of class, we're not gonna discourage kids from doing that. But I mean, I think for functional reasons, it works best on the Chromebook. We provide every student with a Chromebook. There may be classes where being able to take the photo, which again, you can do with the Chromebook.
Yeah.
I don't see. I'm sure we will have students who are hoping for a different answer come to us and say, so can I have my phone for the Schoology app? I'll defer to high school admin on this. I think our answer is probably going to be, would rather have you use Chromebook.
Yeah, I mean, I would support of that too. I just was curious.
It's a good question.
So back to Courtney.
All right, so the last piece that we're gonna show you is the parent portal, because, we feel like it's important that parents are able to access and view similar things of what their child is doing and what they're able to access within Schoology as well. So, from the parent portal, at the beginning of the year, we send out access codes to all of our parents that will link their account that they create to their child's. So here I created a parent account for myself, and I'm linked to our test student account. So there's directions that we send out of how to do that.
How do you send that out?
That is an email that we send individually to.
And
the
you give
mail
the
merge.
email with the registration, so it's.
Yep.
With the
Yep.
code.
Yeah, with the code and the link to get to the parent portal
Okay.
and the directions for creating the account and the code for connecting the two accounts.
So if a parent has. Do you kind of service them?
If they don't have technology,
Yeah, I mean, I would think that there are some of our families that don't have the luxury of.
not that I'm aware of. I have not had any parents reach out to ask,
Okay.
but
No, yeah, I don't think so. I mean, like, I think we're doing like registration, like, we're doing registration, I think is a little more, it was like come into the building and register, but I think a lot of it's moving towards. Like you can register your kid online on your phone, and so, I don't, yeah, I feel like.
And I do know that most of the social workers
Mhm.
would be aware of those families, and probably would.
Yeah.
With. To be sure that they have. Thank you.
so from the parent standpoint, when they log in, it's going to look, basically, they're gonna have a list of children. So if they have more than one child that has access to Schoology, they'll see them in the list here. And they can select the child that they wanna see, and then it basically takes them to that child's Schoology page. And they are able to see everything that their child is able to see. All the courses that they're enrolled in, their feed, what's been completed. The only thing that they cannot see is if a student turned in a specific assignment, maybe their English teacher had assigned a writing assignment. What exactly that writing assignment was, is not accessible, so. Trying to keep that student privacy piece, but in my experience, when parents have questions, usually you can open that conversation up with the teacher and the student. So, but they can see what the assignment was, what the student was asked to do. And then they can see, so here's the news feed, here's the different to-do things for the student.
They see the comments made from the teacher to the student
Yes,
and the calendar.
yes.
Awesome. I mean,
Um,
that's a fine line because you've got the hovering helicopter and you want the kid to be
Right.
self-advocating, but
Yes, so they can navigate to each individual course that the student is enrolled in. You can see the calendar button up here
Oh, sure.
again. That they can access. They can see the overall grades, the scores that the student received on the assignments. Scores. Absolutely.
And I think, so grades are in here, but they're also like. Grades are also an Infinite Campus, and I think one of the best features from a teacher perspective is that. Schoology talks to Infinite Campus where these grades are and will push them to Infinite Campus automatically. And that's Infinite Campus is where we kind of keep those final grades, so there might be stuff that a student's doing in here that doesn't go into Infinite Campus. And it makes it really easy for a teacher to push all these grades to Infinite Campus so they can see them. So there are kind of grades in two places.
but they don't have to double entry.
Correct, yeah, so it's easier for students, to see, and now that's where parents are putting in for like appointments and stuff, and that's where all those grades are, so they are easy to see those grades there as well.
How long have we been using Schoology, like with fidelity through, with all of our staff and all of our?
So our first year, we piloted Schoology and another LMS Canvas in the 2017-2018 school year. So our first school year was 2018-2019, and our expectation by 19-20 was that everybody would be using it. And then really, something happened
Right.
at the back end of that school year, that really kind of flushed the last few folks we might have needed to kind of follow up with onto the platform. That was probably the only silver lining, was otherwise a not so hot time.
So. But to extend that question, I. In at least one student listening session, one of the things we heard about the positive was Schoology. But a negative is that not all staff are using it. And so it's more cumbersome when a staff member isn't using it, putting their assignments on and that sort of thing. Or maybe they're using it for grades, but not the assignments. And so is there a way for administration to know that's being used other than when it's reported, or is? Because I do think there may be some fidelity questions.
Yeah, so I mean, I think it'd be interesting, and I wasn't there for that session,
Yeah.
when they say. Using it, I mean. All teachers have accounts, this is where they're required to post their syllabi starting this year.
Mhm.
So I'd be very surprised to hear of a teacher that had not posted their syllabi in here. But I mean, there are some reporting tools. I couldn't speak to what Brian or Jeff do to kind of know who's most
Sure.
active. Right now.
Yeah, and it could be something that, like, I think our math classes. Like, they're just doing a lot more math on paper still.
Yeah.
And so I don't know, maybe that's what the student was speaking to, that they're doing. I mean, I think at times doing math on a Chromebook is a little bit trickier, so
Right.
like, maybe that's what the student was talking
Sure.
to. But yeah, I, from what I gathered, I think like that there might be a small few cases, but I think it is, but maybe it's been math that they're speaking to.
Another thing, I'm just thinking from a board perspective with our goals of community engagement and, you know, not that this would be a forward thing, but this could be an opportunity to bring in, you know, parents or whatever for a connection on educating them on this. I mean, just because it got rolled out before COVID, and then it kind of, that was kind of thing, and you know, and so now, I mean, it's what a fantastic tool. But
Do you feel your parents, from your perspective, do you feel the parents understand the capabilities and all that kids have access to?
I think there's some that 100%, some that probably don't, like some that don't even have or sent the information but don't even have an account. I think there's a pretty wide range of yeah, some of those helicopter parents are looking every day to see what was posted. And so I think there is probably a range, but there probably is room for more.
Education,
Yeah,
maybe to
more.
our parents too. This is a phenomenon too.
Yeah.
I mean, how can kids not keep up?
Yeah.
But one thing I would say, and is, I think we can always look at, how much do we get this in front? Do we remind people in the newsletters?
Yeah.
Do we hold sessions? But I mean, on the website, if you go to the technology section of the website, there's a very helpful section that then breaks it down into elementary tech,
Okay.
intermediate tech, and middle and high school tech. And I know under the middle and high school tech, we have parent how-to guides and quick starts for Schoology. So that
Okay.
information is there on demand. And if a parent Google searched it, they could find it.
perfect.
We push it out there.
Yeah.
We can always do more, don't get me wrong,
Yeah.
but
You know, I hope that we are trying to educate all parents in the capabilities of this.
Well, and in that line, do we send this out in Hispanic language?
The access.
Well,
the access code.
Is it, no, I mean, the information, because we have a large number of first generation. Students whose parents' only language is some form of Spanish, and this would do them no good if it's only in English. And so is there capacity to, whether it's with AI, to have this put out into Spanish was being entered, just like, some of our other documents, I don't know how they do it. for board communications and newsletters.
That I'm aware of.
That-
But
I mean, our original instructions were sent out in both English and Spanish, and I mean, like Chrome can translate to some degree. I don't know how well, that it could,
Reason I bring it up,
Yeah.
at the, Hispanic club group that I listened to, that's one of their experiences. They feel totally alone with their academic journey. Their parents can't help them. And they only speak Spanish.
Yeah.
And so, I don't know what percentage of our population it is, but if there are a way to do that with AI or something.
yeah.
I think it'd be a wonderful gift to that segment of our parent population.
Yeah, that might be something like,
And it may not be feasible, because I don't know, but it's,
It would be interesting to see if they had an interface that could mirror what's here, but in a
Right.
different language.
right.
Yeah.
I'm fairly sure there are language settings built into Schoology. We could probably do more education around it. One of the fundamental challenges, though, is that if teachers are linking content, that may not be directly translated, but again, for students who are receiving EL support, they are getting that from their EL teacher. And again, not to put it all on the families, you do have some pretty again, depending on their home technology or their phone technology,
Right.
there are some pretty solid apps for doing translations on the fly, even sometimes just by taking a photo. But that's probably a good reminder. We can work on kind of how to change languages and the overall Schoology platform. Anything else for Courtney? Are you?
That was-
Yeah,
that was it.
that's it, yeah.
It's a really cool tool.
Yeah.
for sharing.
I can't
With
thank
us
you enough
all
for
the-
coming to sharing everything you did.
It, it's a tool I've heard about, but, I have no idea. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Actually, I would.
I want
would
to go.
say-
Yeah, you're part of the next.
Oh,
group.
These aren't
You
that
got
hot.
warmed up chairs.
But now I think it is time to invite Rick and Sarah and Cassie up. And we are on to our next agenda item. And thank you, Courtney and Alec, for doing a great introduction to Schoology. It is a great resource. It helps students, and I think anything that helps students actually helps all of us. So,
Here, it says
Um,
right more.
yes. Yes, so
Such an old guy.
you heard it takes a big team to talk about AI because we've had a lot of people looking at this. It's been an evolving area. And so I think maybe first some introductions might be great. So Rick, if you could start off and just kind of go down the line.
sure, with France, but the technology.
Sarah Wendorf, I'm the LMTC director over at the intermediate school.
Courtney Lava, ed tech at the high school.
Alec Carter's at Tech Middle School.
I'm Cassie Roberts, ed tech at Prairie Elementary.
So we have an assemblage of some of our finest tech talent in the district. And I think if you could put this to slideshow, perhaps, Lola. And I think the clicker is there. And I think, Rick, you may have some of the first few, I think I've got the intro. And then we're going to get into some slides where Rick's going to speak to, but we have a few things we want to do today. There's actually a lot of information in here. A little bit on what is AI. We don't want to assume background knowledge. It's fairly new in some ways. What some AI trends are and what our AI journey has been here in Waunakee and our next steps. We're going to have some demonstrations on some different AI tools, particularly Brisk, which we're using quite a bit at the intermediate, middle, and high schools. And then a little bit on ethics and policy at the end with time for some of your questions. And maybe, you may want us to bring information back. You may have a recommendation. This would be good for the whole board. That's really your call as a committee.
To start out with, what is AI? As Tim said, it's something fairly new, but yet it isn't. It really has been around for quite a while, since really the mid 20th century is when the idea and research started for AI and when it really kind of kicked off. The It says artificial intelligence, it refers to development of computer systems that perform tasks that typically will require human intelligence to carry out, such as visual perception, speech recognition, language translation, which really is, language translation is really kind of the foundation of how AI all started. Systems learn from experience, and the more data that they process, the more they learn through algorithms. Different types of AI, and there are many different types, but you'll kind of see as we go through these, a lot of them have similar characteristics. And a lot of the AI we see today really uses all of these different types of AI. A lot of the tools do. They leverage a lot of different types of AI in one tool. Machine learning is using algorithms to enable systems to improve the experience without programming. An example that I think most of us are probably familiar with would be like spam filtering. There is programmed to learn to read email and to score it initially, but then it learns over time based on how the system, whether it accepts it as spam or whether you go in and maybe check something and say this is not spam. It's constantly analyzing that data and rescoring and learning how to become better at detecting what is spam, what is not spam. Deep learning is kind of a subset of machine learning that uses large data models. An example of this might be with your credit card fraud alert, where they analyze your purchasing patterns, location where you typically purchase things, and it continually monitors additional transactions that come in, and based on your data, it can determine if something looks out of place, and you might get a notification. Some systems will even pause and not allow the purchase to go through until you securely acknowledge that it's a valid purchase. Natural language processing is really kind of where AI began. It enables understanding and interpreting in human language terms and language translation, which is again where it really started right around I guess just after World War II is when people really realized the importance of language translation and how valuable it was. And then they started looking into how they could automate that. And that's really kind of where AI began. Computer vision, AI that allows systems to interpret visual data or visual information. I'm sure we're all familiar with like facial recognition that can identify different shading and contours in your face to allow you to securely log in. Expert systems are AI programs that emulate the decision-making of experts in a certain field. We see this in like the health industry. They have AI systems that will look at your health history, that will look at family health history, and take all of that information to determine the likelihood of potential diseases you may be susceptible to. And then it can even make recommendations of things you can do that hopefully may help prevent or limit the chance of you getting some of those. And then finally, the general AI models are what we've seen in the last couple of years are transformers with what they call the large language models like ChatGPT. You may have heard of Google had Bard, which is now Gemini, and then Facebook's parent company, Meta, let's forget the name, has Llama is there, and there are many other ones that are out there, but those are kind of some of the big three. And again, the generative AI models use a lot of these different types really in one model, and we'll do some brief demonstrations of some of these. Why the interest in AI? It's rapidly growing, expanding technology, and it has a lot of applications for the education space. It can increase productivity by doing automated tasks. Can be used for like brainstorming, idea storming, for curriculum planning, classroom planning, and many other things, which we'll kind of touch on in a little bit. But you can see from the graph there just how rapidly AI grew. 1 million users. It took Facebook 10 months, ChatGPT 5 days, and it's just continuing to grow and expand. As we kind of talked about, AI is not new. It's been around since mid-20th century. As far as the research for it and development of it, kind of a key date is for AI is 1958. Lisp was the first programming language specifically for AI. It's actually still used in AI research today. But that was really kind of the start of AI. In the eighties, you had expert systems, the nineties, machine learning, and if you're around my age or older, you may remember IBM had, I think it was Deep Blue that took on Gary Kasparov, the grand chess master, and defeated him. And I think that might have been the year that the computer was named Man of the Year for. So, the 2000s deep learning, 2010s transformer models, and the 2020s most recently are the generative large language models that we use. And a lot of people think because of all the press and just how rapidly it's been growing that it just started in the last couple of years, but as you can see, it really is, this has quite a long history that it's been building. It's in a lot of areas we don't even realize. So I'll pass it over to Sarah to talk a little bit about some AI tools.
This chart is just a timeline for when some different AI related functions were built into Google products in particular, since we do use G Suite in the district. And it started with, 2015, you started getting suggestions, like, is this the action you want to complete? And then one that was big for a lot of our students was when it built in its own speech to text, so then it was more accessible for different levels of learners. And let's say Smart Compose, like, here are some sample answers for you, and now it's just kind of grown from there, with features getting added all the time.
So before, just looking at them, so Smart Reply that's a response to communications you receive?
Yes.
So it's possible in a particular profession that the computer does all the responding and the recipient might not even know what was the content because they leave it up to the AI.
Smart Reply, when that one started, like, it gave you suggestions when you started typing.
Okay, so it doesn't do the responding for you.
That
There is an interaction that goes on.
Yeah. Yeah, it wasn't someone's,
I'm just thinking of the automated communications I have with a drugstore.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
Okay,
So, I think one of the big things, like Rick said, is that a lot of us assume that AI is very new, and it really has been around. We've been using it for a very long time. Everything from show suggestions on Netflix, fraud detection with our credit cards and banking, to our, our Google Home and, Alexas, and all of those devices are all pieces that are really programmed with AI to help us, just be a little more efficient. Thank you. When I presented this with students, I said, have you ever thought about how Google Maps, when you're driving somewhere, Google Maps can tell you almost to the minute how long it's going to take you. It can tell you where the slowdowns are. And that's all data that, it's learning from as more users are using it. So these are things that we've used for a very long time, but it's really accelerated, and our usage has gone up significantly.
So Rick mentioned a bunch of the models we've heard of, ChatGPT, Llama, Claude. This is just one type of benchmark tool that's used to kind of rate their effectiveness. And so this just shows from a few weeks ago, and ChatGPT, OpenAI released an updated version of ChatGPT within the week, but you can just see who, at this point in time, some of the highest performing on these benchmarks were, and you see Llama 3, which is Meta or Facebook's, Gemini Ultra for Google, Claude 3 from Anthropic, and then ChatGPT 4. Those are the highest rated. Those are kind of the all-stars of the AI world. If you could just move it ahead, Lola. But one thing all of those all-stars share in common is they're all owned or partnered with one of what we might call the big tech firms. So OpenAI partners very strongly with Microsoft. Anthropic, which has Claude, which is another powerful model, partners very strongly with Amazon. Gemini is a Google or Alphabet product, and Llama is a Facebook or Meta product. Although unlike the first three, Llama's open source, Meta makes the code available so you could make modifications, kind of like Linux for operating systems. Now, we're going to demonstrate some of these in a little bit for you, but we're also going to demonstrate other applications that are very focused on schools. But it's important to realize that in most cases, the programs that might help you from an education standpoint, they are connecting back through, they're paying to use the more capable models, and they just customized the front end and kind of create a template to make it fit education, or maybe fit healthcare or something else. And why is it so concentrated? It takes a lot of computing power to train these models and to operate them. So you could come up with a basic AI model if you had the background knowledge, but it wouldn't have the capabilities of these really big models. So to have these models do what they do, you have to have a lot of computing resource. And in the United States, these really are the 4 companies that have that kind of technology infrastructure, which if we pop it down, we just saw the news in the last week or two that, you know, in Southeast Wisconsin, Microsoft is going to be building a data center to support their AI needs. And, you know, in the fine print, it's a $3.3 billion capital expenditure. It's going to employ about 2,000 contractors to construct. And in the long term, they expect to employ about 1,000 people at this data center, which is already fairly automated. So I think that gives a sense of the scale. And this is just one of Microsoft's data centers. I think they have like 200. So it's very resource intensive, which again, as we think about sustainability, that's the big question is this bad for sustainability because it's a hog, or is it automating other things so much more that even though it draws a lot, it saves us in other areas? And that's something that I think is being debated in some places. Some general trends. Researchers are getting better at figuring how to make LLMs work more effectively. So in the early days, people said, wow, look at what ChatGPT can do. And then people would say, wow, look at that crazy thing ChatGPT produced as an answer. It's called a hallucination. It just didn't really work. And so some of it's fine-tuning the model. Some of it is building up what they call context windows, which is a little bit like RAM on your computer. You want your computer to run faster, we would upgrade the RAM. You want your LLM to work better, you give it more window to hold information to work with. And so a lot of hallucinations were, you'd give it a big task and it dropped the first part of the task before it finished the task, and you got a weird made up answer. So they're doing a lot of work on this. And, you know, a lot of what we're going to show you today is based around large language models, because education is a very language intensive field. But the thinking is we're going to see some big shifts in the next few years, really around 2 things. One, the bottom bullet, different industry sectors get more experience with these tools. What can AI do for us? If I'm in marketing, what can AI do for me? If I'm in education, what can AI do for us? The other thing is that we're focused today a lot on LLMs, but in China, a lot of the focus is on robotics and integrating AI into advanced manufacturing, and also integrating AI into research to expedite research. And we're seeing that some in the United States, and that's expected to be a growing trend here too. Some trends in education. We're one of those industry sectors that's getting more experience with AI, and the educators you have at the table, they're right at the forefront of our efforts with our staff. And so the tools get better and better. The tool we use the most has gotten noticeably more capable since we made the decision to subscribe to it. One of the reasons that we did a pilot is it's important to protect student privacy in what we do. We have a lot of regulations and commitments we have to own up to and live. And so more and more AI vendors are getting into the education space and providing us with products that meet our privacy needs. And Rick always reviews those before we implement something. Something that I think right now we're very focused on is staff use. We use the term automate the plate in one of the earlier slides. I mean, teachers work very hard finding ways to help teachers use their time efficiently to deliver great experiences for kids and maintain work-life balance is very important to us as a district. There is a lot of thinking that we're going to see more and more use in time as students begin to use AI more directly on one-to-one tutoring. So, Joan, you do tutoring, and how powerful, I mean, students will come to you for tutoring because they know how powerful it is to have a skilled one-to-one tutor. But we never have enough tutors. We'd always benefit, I think, all of us in some way, shape, or form from highly skilled one-to-one tutoring. Now, motivation is one of the most important things in learning. And so I think it's going to be challenging to see machines replace the motivational connection you get with another human. But if you had automated systems that were engaging to students that could provide high quality one-to-one tutoring, that would be a big learning benefit. I think the question is, the system will have the technical capability to provide high capability tutoring. Will it be motivating one-to-one tutoring? And that I think does remain to be seen.
So in the past, concerns always, occasionally would come up about teachers creating curriculum from resources outside the curriculum, and the concern about appropriateness, accuracy, fidelity to district, values or whatever. How do we, I mean, I can see how this would be a phenomenal resource for creating curriculum, but how do we then pull that into appropriateness and whether it's for grade level or for the content, that sort of thing.
So that's
accuracy.
Yeah, that's an important question. And so, first of all, and some of this will be addressed a little later, there's a reason why we have not yet put an AI, we're putting AI tools in the hands of our staff. There's a reason why we haven't put it directly in the hands of students yet. That's one of the reasons. There are other also very important reasons, but that's one. One thing is for things that we endorse as a district and subscribe to, there's a review process. The applications we will show you later, most of them that are being used by teachers actually have connections to the state standards, and the types of activities they do, I think you'll recognize as working from reasonable sources, but there's no substitute to the judgment of the teacher. So I think the rule of thumb would be, and I think this will be a good thing to discuss when we get to the demos. It will do the 80% of the drudgery, but then the 20% checking for accuracy, making sure it's appropriate and authentic, that still needs to be with the educator. Two things to highlight on talent. One is AI is here. Different businesses, different industries are looking at it very carefully. If you're in a more digital economy type of industry, it's beyond the experimentation stage and it's very active. We want people using it. We want to hire for it. We want to figure out how this makes us more effective and more profitable. It's a little early to say what careers will change the most. I think a lot of what you might hear today would be it's going to have the biggest impact on careers, often professional careers that work a lot with words and numbers. That might be the case. And there's a thinking it's not going to affect activities that are more physical in nature. But I do think we need to kind of see as AI gets paired with robotics, does that still continue to be the case? Or, because right now, roofing is a complex task. You can't tell a robot to go re-roof a house, and you certainly couldn't let it look at what Joan wants for her house and Katie wants for her house and look at two work orders and differentiate. But that might not be the case in 10 years, so we'll have to see. The other thing, if you could click on the link, Lola. There's something we need to think about, and then just scroll down, accept the terms of use and then scroll down. This is something a think tank does, which is tracking the top AI researchers in the world. And I think an important thing to understand is the American economy for our most highly educated roles. We are a global economy, and the United States economy and the major United States corporations, we pull in talent globally for what our firms need and what our economy needs. And so what you see here is that a lot of the talent in AI comes from countries outside of the United States. And in fact, I mean, you just kind of see the flow here, and you can see major, so and if you could just go down a little more, you can see where Europe fits into this. And you'll notice if you go up, that at the undergraduate level, China is the largest. About 5 years ago, just before the pandemic, the Chinese government said AI is important. If you're an institution of higher education, you start on AI major. So now there are 2,000 higher ed institutions in China that offer majors in AI, distinct from computer science. China is a very large country. The key point here, though, is that it's a global market. If you go back to the presentation, Lola, that just kind of shows its piece. For folks that work in our top institutions today in 2022, top American institutions, 38% came from the United States by birth. 37% came from China by birth, and the other 25% came from somewhere else. Now, in time, it's likely that China, India, Europe, as their industries grow, they may end up being able to retain more of their talent at home. And so for American firms to maintain the development that we're currently accustomed to and are currently accustomed as a standard of living in our country, we may need to look at growing our, what we would call the STEM pipeline, more than we have in the past, which has a lot of implications for us in the room, not as users, but as an education system. What's our part to make sure that we are producing the next generation of computer scientists and AI researchers to keep this work moving ahead for our standard of living? And that's enough about the talent trend. So I think, Alec, the next slide is yours.
A little bit done with the history lesson. We'll move on. We'll talk about how Waunakee has used and is using AI. So started back in 2020. Our middle school science department partnered with the National Science Foundation and a group at UW-Madison. And they did a project where our students were submitting answers to prompts to different questions to like a program, and that program would give AI feedback to students. It would look at what words and try to read it, and then give the students and the teachers feedback on that student's writing, or on the student's writing. It also, the middle school gave feedback to the developers as well. So it was kind of a partnership program with UW there. Kind of talked about the release of ChatGPT in 2022, and how that, like, a lot more people became aware of AI and saw it and tried it out then. So that was a pretty big moment there. And then this year, or last year, we had our first AI working team meeting. And then also our high school faculty did a PD around ChatGPT back in last May. And then we adopted that student language around AI in June of last year. And then we had some of our high school English teachers attend a conference about writing and the use of ChatGPT last summer. we passed out those AI guidelines to staff in August. And then we had our like 15 minutes of fame and our Channel 3 news story last October talking about the middle school and high school use of AI. And then this year, we did that, Tim kind of mentioned that we did that pilot of Brisk that you'll see in a little bit. And then we went ahead and purchased Brisk teaching for the middle, intermediate, and high school. That's going to run through the next school year. And we continue to learn about different platforms as well. And then my favorite one out of them all, here we have a presentation to the curriculum committee. And Sarah's going to talk a little bit.
So we mentioned earlier that we've been focusing on preparing our staff for using AI and how it can help them with productivity. But I include some examples and some other examples of how we're teaching students about AI. So every December, there is an hour of code that's part of New Science Month as promotion. For our intermediate version, we gave access to teachers and they chose to use it with their students or not, so it was optional. They had 7 activities that taught about how machine learning works, how AI starts to learn different things. One of the kids' favorite activities was one called Quick Draw. They're given a prompt and they have to try and draw it on their Chromebook and see if the AI can get it. And sometimes it's spot on and sometimes we're all looking at their screen like, we get it as this object. Why does this not get that it's the object? And then with 5th grade, I teach a lesson to all the 5th graders about images and editing them and just kind of thinking about it. So I included a slide in there where we were just brainstorming what are positives or negatives about AI generated art. And on it, I included something I used a tool called Canva to make, and I had that little logo going. AI created it, I modified it, and I showed them exactly the prompt I used. And we also, in our conversation about how would your opinion change if you were the professional artist? Now, what do you think about pros and cons of AI? And then later this year, we were talking about intellectual property and copyright, and I used a tool called CuraPod, and we checked its privacy policy first to make sure it was okay to use with kids. Part of it's very similar to another tool we use where the kids can then see the content on their screen and interact with it, and not just my screen on the front. And I used CuraPod, given it our standards, what's normally in that lesson. It made a series of slides. I picked and chose and modified which ones. But some of the AI activities with it, the kids were, they created an answer to one of our intellectual property questions, and then CuraPod paired them all up, and then they got to vote on who they thought had the better answers while it was anonymous. And that was one way. And then it had an exit ticket activity, which is probably its most AI use for what we did. And it had a question, you know, like tell me 2 different things are protected by copyright law, an example of how this protects the person who made it. And the kids entered in their answer. And I'm like, now wait for it, because I hit a button and their answers were scanned by the AI that CuraPod uses. And then they got personalized feedback to it. They're like, wait, how did I have to do feedback that fast? And looking at it, but I did have to prompt them because at first it said something like, great job or good job answering the question, and then came the real feedback. So I'm like, ignore it, like, look at that, now look at this part, what did you notice? It led to some interesting discussions. Up at the high school, they've been talking about AI bias and appropriate use during some of their advisory lessons. Experiences.
And then I'll also talk a little bit more about, I think this is kind of probably where a lot of our work has been this year, is teaching staff about AI. So last year at Learning Fest, we offered a couple sessions about using AI and the use for teachers and how to use AI in our classroom. So that last year at Learning Fest, Brisk is the one that we're talking a lot about. So we did a lot of work with that, with our pilot, teaching staff about it at different Genius Hours and PLC meetings. So meeting with staff, showing them how it works, kind of talking how they might use it in their classroom. And then high school also did the same thing, trying to teach their staff about it. At a PD, same thing with the intermediate school. We are also, there's so many, every day there's more AI platforms out there. And so it's like, what's out there, what's good, what's not, and trying to sift through, kind of like what tools. What should we suggest to teachers is always like kind of a big question, and trying to stay on top of it is a hard thing to do. So there's are two other ones that we've done some experimenting, some piloting, some messing around with this year, School AI, and Magic School that you'll see in a little bit. And then our middle school, we're just trying to do a small pilot about this other AI tool, because we're moving towards those longer instructional blocks next year. And how does that impact student teaching, and just making sure that teachers are prepared to move to that little longer instructional block. And then this is another one. Just this morning, actually, I was setting up a student. It's called a Merlin, and it's a remote. So kind of a presenting tool, but also has some built-in AI capabilities where you can ask it questions in real time, and get some feedback. You can set some presets. You can have it like do tasks that might take you a few seconds. You can talk into it and have those do some of those tasks for you to just like make instructional a little bit more engaging, or also even like if conversations are happening in the classroom and you might not know the answer, you might be able to interact with this device as well to get some of that like real-time knowledge and engage the students as well. So I think a little bit more next steps, where we're going forward. So professional learning is always a good part of it. I think any conference that has AI in it, well, somebody from the district is there, usually Tim as well. So he's on the front lines learning about all the new tools and tech out there. So yeah, we went to all of us up here have gone to conferences, and a big portion of them are talking about AI. So we also are doing, I mentioned that one, that the writing one in ChatGPT this summer. There's a AI regional summit in Pewaukee this summer that some of us are going to. Learning Fest this year, we're offering a number of sessions around AI, and then also around the ELA and our curriculum renewal process around how AI fits in there. And I think just kind of, so going forward, looking more down the road, I think it's always just kind of about updating. Everything's changing, everything's update, looking back on how did that go? How did that language, do we need to make any changes to those guidelines? Do we have to change to a different platform? Are teachers using Brisk that we purchased? Is there other platform that is better now? So I think it's just kind of a lot of that teaching cycle where you're looking at, is it working? Is there something that could do it better? And make changes if we need to. So I think looking longer term, just updating, learning more, and making changes and tweaks is kind of what that timeline looks like going forward.
So do our teachers utilize AI in like the written papers and they provide feedback to students?
Some of them, yeah.
So like I do a research paper and I'm a teacher and I have to grade 100, whatever. They put it through AI or through Brisk.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then it generates feedback for the student.
Yeah, and I know my 8th grade ELA team are some of our power users of that tool, and we're gonna. So yes. And then I think it's time for
Some demonstrations.
some fun.
So the top ones we're just gonna give, it's gonna be just little samplers. Courtney's gonna go a little longer on Brisk since that's the bigger piece. So Rick, I think you were gonna do a little bit with
Yeah.
Gemini and
Gemini and
ChatGPT.
ChatGPT, which are a couple
Oh.
of large language models we talked about. What was that? Example. So now I'm gonna go a little bit into geek mode right now. I guess that's not really changing much, but so I've done a little bit of programming in the past with Python, which is a programming scripting language. And I decided to use it for a project. Somebody's looking for some reporting, but I didn't remember all the syntax. So, I mean, this was a great way to start, and I'll just do a more simplistic example here, but I'll just say, say compare two like spell spreadsheets, and common records. Yeah, just that fast. I mean, it created that code for me. Now, I'm gonna have to go in here and do a little editing and, but I don't have to, you know, remember all of that syntax and spend all the time to go look that up again. You know, there's tasks like this that it can really help you out with giving you a good foundation to start from. It's not gonna be perfect, but it really can speed up the process. And then the nice thing with, I'll just pull up Gemini, which is Google's version of large language model, is because we're obviously a Google district, it's tightly integrated. So, let's see here, I'll just do so I just wanted to create an email to let staff know that we're doing the network update. So just like that, it creates this, you know, and it talks about things that they should consider. And obviously, the more detail you put in, you know, the more you're gonna get out. And the closer it'll be, but I don't know about you, but one of the hardest things at times for me is looking at a blank page and thinking, okay, how do I want to start this? How do I want to, you know, you're not just gonna click send, but it gives you a good base to start from. It really saves a lot of time. And the nice thing again with Gemini, because we're a Google district, it's integrated, I can come right here and I can say export to or draft in Gmail, and it'll put it right in Gmail. I don't have to do copy paste or I could say export to Docs and it'll pull it up in Google Docs. So you could do things like letter recommendations or, you know, anything like that, where it's just like, it'd be nice to have something to kind of start with and then.
And that's not considered, like ethically, what's that like considered plagiarizing? I'm just.
Right, you're using it more for, brainstorming for, you know. Now, if you're talking like with students and you're doing the paper, that's, different. A whole different, different.
Well, you raise it, just the way you phrase that, if you look at an empty page and they have a hard time starting. I have this nightmare as a retired English teacher that we don't teach kids how to start. You don't have to anymore, so it's. You know, so that's a
That's
skill
half a
they may
month of your
never develop.
curriculum.
Yeah.
But I will say with this message, I've never seen a message from a tech person saying, I apologize.
No.
So there are some enhancements that I really like.
Well, it looks like too, I saw an article this week that the Google Suite for education is eventually going to have some of these, or wouldn't necessarily have to go straight to the Gemini
Yep.
page. They would be, you're in your Gmail, and there's a little magic wand or whatever their symbols usually are that you can click directly from your email or from your Google Docs or whatever you have within the suite for both probably staff and students eventually, where they can just click that right from the Google Suite and then use a lot of these tools. So that
We've actually just
Yeah.
started, we have a few licenses for Gemini where it's actually embedded like that, where you can, right in Gmail, there's a little prompt, you know, do these, or how can I help you?
For students who struggle with the mechanics of writing it, that's a godsend. So, and it's, and never thought, that's AI, you know, but that's a real plus.
And especially the translation piece too directly in there, instead of having to go separately to Google Translate, you probably have those tools built right into your Google Doc, right into your Gmail.
Right.
Communication.
Yeah.
As well.
Yeah, and Mark, you bring up a very valid, good point, I think that, and it's important that, that we teach when we're showing staff these, we teach them that they are just tools. It's another tool to use, it shouldn't be the be all end all. It shouldn't be, I'm just gonna punch this in AI for, a review or, you know, it's just another tool that we use.
Right.
So I think I've got Claude, so I'll actually come your way. And just kind of in the interest of time, I'm not gonna do this in real time. I went into Claude a little while before our meeting, just to repopulate some things. So hopefully it'll let me log in. My past project. So one thing I've noticed recently is these models are getting very powerful with what they call multimodal AI. They can work not only with words, but you can give it other things. So one thing I did was I gave it this photo. And I said, please analyze the attached image. What is this? And it said this image shows a large crowd gathered in what appears to be a football stadium. Given the trophy and the extended atmosphere, this seems to be a celebration after a big football game or championship. So it has a general clue, but it's not too specific. So then I extended my prompt based on the insignia on the player's jersey, any speculation as to the college and what the trophy is for. So I gave it insignia trophy. Based on the Y insignia visible on one person's hat in the foreground, this appears to be a celebration involving Yale University. The large silver trophy being held up resembles the Ivy League championship trophy, which indeed, that is the Ivy League championship trophy. It doesn't resemble it. That is the trophy. And then it just adds a little more. So it was able to do that just from the image. Now, another one that it did, this is even freakier to me, is I have a good friend on Facebook who travels or eats out with his family. When he does, he posts photos. So he's got excellent taste. I learned a lot about what I could be eating if I was a laryngeal surgeon. But I took one of his photos. So again, he had gone to a Japanese restaurant. Please analyze this photo of a dinner entree. What is it, and could you draft a suggested recipe? Thank you in advance for your analysis and culinary expertise. I like to compliment. Yeah. I never know when it's finally going to get really good, and I might want it to think nicely of me someday. So the image shows a beautifully presented appetizer for amuse-bouche. It consists of a quenelle, an egg-shaped scoop of what appears to be crab or lobster mousse, which it indeed was. It's a Japanese crab mousse. I think it got a little wrong, but it then gives you a recipe.
Wow.
I also gave it another one that was not this one, but this one. He was recently in France. He had gone to a restaurant, and so he posted a photo of his plate. And so what did it say for that? Again, I asked the same prompt. This image shows what appears to be a traditional Alsatian meal, likely charcuterie garnie, which consists of sauerkraut, various types of sausages and cured meats, and boiled potatoes. So it identifies specifically what it saw. It gives you a recipe if you want to try this at home. And along the way, it also decided to identify the beverage that Johnny was having as well. Again, all from the photo. I didn't tell it he was in France. And I didn't say that from the photo, it was able to analyze it. So again, the capabilities of these are growing, their ability to work not only from text, but from image, very impressive. And so I think that is enough of that. We are back to, I think your way is.
Are we doing okay on time? Like,
Yeah.
So I almost feel like we should, to make sure elementary gets their justice, ask each one of yours, and then we need to spend a little time on Brisk, because that's the biggest one for us. Then we'll get on to other parts.
So at the elementary level, we did a little bit of adopting with some of the same things. like when because I have to do this over. So we did a little bit of exploration along with our committee, the committee work as well, and we did do some risk testing. We did a couple of the other ones that are more tool specific versus the large ones like ChatGPT and things like that, just because of the nature of what our kids do. A lot of that feedback piece that kind of goes along with the upper levels is not really something we're at that point at the elementary yet. So that's a piece that's one of the reasons we decided not to adopt the BRISC at the elementary level yet. Just because that is such a big piece of it, and kind of more focus on some of the tools that teachers could use to be more efficient. So two of the ones that we did also introduce BRISC, and we introduced CuraPod to our teachers through some professional development, but really the two that we focused on was Magic School and the School AI. They both offer tools specific for teachers. School AI has more specific chatbots and specific tutors that you could use with students. Both of these you could technically use with students. We haven't really gone that way yet with our teachers. We've had some, I believe there was one teacher that I know of that has demonstrated it for kids, but haven't had the kids actually put their typing or their input in. It's more of like, this is what we're going to do for this project. I'm going to put things in just to make it safe. So there's more of those tutors and specific chatbots. So if you wanted to talk to, say, a tech chatbot, or you wanted to talk to a learning coach specific chatbot, that's more of what School AI has. I haven't seen as many people using that as much. Most of the students or the teachers have been using Magic School. So let's bring up Magic School.
And more what Tim and Rick demonstrated are more the chatbot.
So wondering if it just has a picture on the front or if I need to log in. Tim, do you have an account for Magic AI?
I don't think I do.
So as a district, we pay for this like subscription?
No, so all the ones that we've done at the elementary level are just testing out. They gave us some free subscriptions for a certain period of time. Just to kind of test things out. BRISC we tried out as well, and those have since expired for our elementary teachers. They still can use the tools. There's just not, like they can't go into their history from like 5 months ago. It only shows like 3 or 4 times. So there's still free tools that we're kind of testing out. Do you mind if I sign you up, Tim,
Go for it.
for a School A or Magic School account?
Free account till the end of the month.
Sure. So you can start to see in the background, there is a list of tools. Have to do all the next. So in the background, while we're doing this, you can see all of the tools that are populating. So that, let's do this one. It does something similar to what you've seen in some of the previous ones, except it's a tool specific. So if you wanted, let's say we've used one that, and then it also does have a chatbot, which is called Raina. Thank you. All right, so here's all the tools. I apologize for that. So it's very tool specific. So one of the ones this is the one that teachers were really excited about was, let's say you're doing a project where you have a YouTube video. For example, I teach tech, so maybe I'm learning about what is AI. And I wanted to pull some questions that the kids can answer. And let's say you want to put it into a Kahoot or to share with your class. Maybe you want it to summarize what the actual transcript says. So if you have a YouTube video with a transcript, you can run it through there. It'll populate questions, but that's a specific tool. It gives you specific guidelines and the prompts that you put in. Some of these tools like feedbacks, text leveler is one that is popular.
Mhm.
I have seen a couple teachers use this one. So let's say you have National Geographic article on gazelles. They're doing animal research and they couldn't find that specific animal, let's say on San Diego Zoo for Kids or on the Kids National Geographic. You could take that text, copy it from the website and paste it into the text leveler. And it will ask you what grade level you would want to have that text be a part of. So let's say you wanted it to be at a 3rd grade level, they're doing their animal research. It will take that text that you put in and level it at a reading level that would be appropriate for second or third grade. And that would be great for also differentiation, even with some of our materials we already use in the classroom. So you could put some passages, like you said, from the curriculum materials we already use and level it down for some kids or level it up if needed before you go back to that main. So this is a really good site for just, and School AI also has something similar. They also have some tools, just not quite as many as these. We have used the SEL one. They're not in alphabetical order, but the SEL one comes with the Castle standards preloaded in here. So if I wanted to do an SEL, let's say, lesson for their morning meeting, I could put it in, choose what Castle standards, I want to put in there. Or I guess it's their SEL competency, but it doesn't match with our Castle standards. So you could go ahead and put that in and it will populate what you want using that standard. So that's something we're seeing more and more with these tool specific ones where they do have some of those standards built in. So that's kind of just a little preview. There is a chat bot if they wanted to. The piece we have not completely explored with this one yet is the student side of things. Again, it has things like tutor capability tools and more like a brainstorm tool, those kind of things. That would be for the student use. They wouldn't have all of these tools like teachers have some of the lesson plan ones and those kind of things, but that's something we would potentially explore in the future if this was a tool. It is both COPA and FERPA compliant. So if we did use it with the students, they're connected to the teacher account. So they would, especially at the elementary level, that would be something that they would control what the chatbots look like and all of that as well. So that'll be something we continue to look at.
That is brisk. Yeah, hungry for some brisk. Okay, so come back here. So Brisk is the platform that we've kind of explored back in January at the intermediate, middle and high school. We decided to purchase. And Brisk is it's a Chrome extension that teachers are able to use whenever they're in a Chrome browser, basically. Brisk offers a lot of different features that they continue to add to this list. But as you can see, there's a lot of things that staff can create using Brisk. With quizzes, they can create quizzes in Google Docs or Google Form automatically. It will create rubrics. It'll create depth of knowledge questions. We have some staff that are using it for exemplars. It'll give feedback, which a lot of our ELA teachers are finding very useful in giving timely feedback to their students. It also offers the inspect writing tool, which in my opinion is a very powerful tool where if a student submits a Google document as an assignment, turns it into the teacher can actually see the replay of that student creating that document. They can see if they copy and pasted anything in, and we'll demo that in a few minutes here. And then of course, for the differentiation piece, we have the ability to change not only reading level, but also language. So I could say, take this article from National Geographic and change it into a second grade reading level, which is really great for some of our newcomers. Have some. So I created. Okay, so. Once you install Brisk, which I think we were able to push out to this extension to all of our staff that have it. Sign. This is a Google document that I created just for fun. Just as an example. And so if this were a document that a student turned into a teacher, one of the big pieces that they are able to, this is interesting. Oh, because give it but we can give it feedback. So there are different types of feedback that we can give. I might need to put that into. I'm just gonna send it.
And while Courtney's doing it, I think, one thing that you might have noticed is there's some automated pieces, but there's a lot of opportunity for a teacher or a course team to generate a rubric. And then the rubric that our teachers created is what the AI will utilize as a starting point to the feedback. And none of it goes, as Courtney will show you shortly, directly to the student, just tease it up for the teacher as a draft. But this is the one thing, this is all very Google connected, which is one reason we like it, but then it matters who's logged in.
Yep, all right. So, I'm have access to edit, we can give feedback. So you'll notice that not all 4 of those panels were filled in before. That's the difference between the free version that Brisk offers and the paid for version. So the version that we're paying for offers this targeted feedback. So I'll kind of explain each of the different ones. So Glow and Grow is going to scan the entire document, say, you did really well at this, but here are some places that you can work to improve. Rubric criteria would allow a teacher to say, these are the specific things that I'm looking for in this paper, and it would give feedback based on those specific rubric items, criteria. And then the next steps would be just suggestions for strategies to build those skills. But the targeted feedback is the one that we're really focused on. So what I like about this is that we can write the feedback in different languages. Great for our non-English speaking students. But also I can go in and I can select standards for Wisconsin. And I can pick what grade I would like those standards to be for. And then I can select which strand if I want to go that far. What I like about this, what's great about this is that you might say, I really don't want to worry about providing feedback on grammar, spelling, or something like that. And so we can let the AI focus on those pieces and give the feedback on those pieces. And now I, as the teacher, can give the feedback on the content or maybe the writing styles that I'm looking for. So they can choose what learning targets or multiple learning targets they'd like and what grade level you're looking for. And when I brisk it, it's going to generate some feedback. Now, none of this feedback shows up to students until we click the blue comment button. So I, as the teacher, can go in and edit any of these comments before students see it. So if there's something that I don't agree with, or maybe it's just not focusing exactly on what I would like it to. So nothing shows up until we click comment. And then the student can see the feedback that was given. So that is one of the main features that our ELA teachers are using right now. One of the other features that our teachers are using is the inspect writing tool, which I think is awesome. So what we're watching here is the live play-by-play of me creating this document. Teachers are able to see that there were 2 large copy and pastes. And I think that it's able, to create a really great conversation with students. Where did that information come from? It doesn't seem to be cited anywhere, just rather than maybe pointing the finger right away. So,
Yeah.
Great conversation starter for. There is a detect AI writing tool. I always tell teachers, so this one was very high. I will be honest, I did copy and paste this from another chatbot and then modified it. But I think that, it's like playing cat and mouse with is it AI generated or not? These detectors are okay. But I think that replay feature is a very powerful tool to have a conversation with a student over, Briss says that this was probably AI generated. So, but it does have that capability.
So what are, with that being said, what are our standards as a district for that? So if I, as a teacher, I choose that, it says highly likely, but, you know, there's, you know, some subjectivity to that being accurate or not. Do we have standards about that in our
Yes.
district? Okay,
We do, and our guidance is, so the two tools that we. So Courtney made an important point. I mean, the replay is very good. You see the play, you see what happened. That you know. That highly likely, that's an algorithm. That's like when TurboTax, you get to the end and it says, what's your audit likelihood? You know, we would much prefer people look at the replay and have a conversation with the student about how they got there than just say, oh, this tool said that. And the only tools we want people using, because some of the tools are less accurate than others, and none are perfect, is Brisk, which we subscribe to, and Turnitin, which is specifically for plagiarism, which we also subscribe to for the high school. So, I mean, if it's a very high stakes item, or the student has a lot of, it's not the first time we've had the conversation with the student. The consequences might go in one direction. If it's a young student, low stakes first time, it might go in a different direction. Our goal is to get students to do the right thing and to actually, sometimes they may try to cut corners, other times it's just a lack of understanding about how to properly cite. So that's where the teacher has to deal with it on a case by case basis, but we do have handbook language around this that we would apply consistently for serious offenses. That kind of a fair summary, because you end up having to be the technical coach to a lot of this.
Yeah. Yeah. Any questions about the feedback piece or the inspect writing?
I'd still be teaching. We have teachers like this.
Yep, yep.
Wow.
Some other really neat features that, you know, Brisk offers, that we just kind of seen even with Magic School, is that we can take an article, you know, teachers are great at finding really good articles, but maybe they're above our students' reading level. And so Brisk is able to change the level of that text. I can change it to, you know, a 9th grade level. Right now I can see that it's at an 8th grade level, but I might have, you know, some students that are non-English speaking. I can change the language, change the grade level. And this is when I click change the reading level, it's going to generate a new Google document with this information, but leveled to and in a different language. Kept the image. It does also keep the link to the original article for students to reference back to.
Wow.
And so really great differentiation.
Wow.
When it's done generating, teachers have the additional options to make it shorter, make it longer, add more detail, less detail, create a quiz from that now. And so there's a lot of opportunities to create from what was just made, so. it's
And
another
ultimately,
really-
the teacher needs to bring their professional judgment in to
Right.
decide if the final product is quality. But when you think about the things that could be possible, or there's an English teacher,
Well,
think
the
about
time
how many
saved grading the
students you had
quiz.
to grade and
Yeah.
give feedback on, and how
Right.
quickly you could do it.
Right.
So those are
So,
two of the big ones. Other things that it can do, it can create a, you know, a pretty basic starting point for Google Slides presentation. It can create different things off of a YouTube video again. So a lot of those same things, and it's beta testing right now, PDFs.
yes,
So.
we could go longer on this, and I would
yes,
encourage you
good.
come to Learning Fest and see some of our folks in action. Just because we've got Michelle waiting and middle school ELA, I'd like Cassie to take us into the ethics and policy section, and then we'll bring this home. I think we spent a lot of time on this. We've just scratched the surface. That's how significant this emergence of AI is.
All right, so one of the things that our committee has been doing too is really weighing the positives, which we've seen with, I wouldn't call them negatives, but things that we need to watch for, some of those risks that kind of go in there. So with any system, there, like you said, there's benefits to AI. It can improve learning outcomes. It can support teachers' instruction and their materials that they use, which, you know, allows them to have more time to either work with students or just have a good balance in their life. Without kind of that guidance from committees that, you know, have the early adopters and all of the things that we work towards making sure that we have that guidance across the district, becomes a little bit sketchy for how people access it, whether they choose not to because they're afraid of it, or it's kind of something we don't really want to take on. That's kind of our job, to provide some of that guidance, and also looking at some of the factors that we need to think about, like bias. We need to make sure that we're not having that 100% reliance on AI and have that 80-20 kind of balance, and making sure that we're really taking those things into consideration when we're training our staff and our students when we get to that point too, as we go forward, on what is the benefits versus the risks. And so that they're aware of that, they can understand, is there sometimes that there's going to be misinformation? Absolutely. One of the things, Sarah, I don't know if you did that activity with kids where when you ask it to provide sources for what it does, sometimes AI will just make stuff up. They'll put the right format, but if you actually go and look for those resources, is it a real resource? So some of that misinformation, or it's getting better at not doing that because it can get more resources than just plugging in holes for what it thinks. But just knowing to look for that as a human, that's part of what we train for some of that. So keeping in mind, and that's that first bullet point, making sure that we understand that using technology needs both components. We need that advancement to go through and prepare students for the future, but we also need that human aspect. So it's not, the AI is not going to solve everything to where we're like people in Wally just sitting on chairs drinking our, you know, cupcakes in a jar. We need to have both pieces of that balance that we find. So helping students to understand that, helping our staff to understand that, mitigating those risks, making sure that we have that piece in place to give that human element is very important as we start teaching that to our students and start developing that curriculum as well. Making sure that we are overcoming some of that resistance. That's something that we work with on a regular basis as the tech integrators, is helping to be that comfort for the people who are trying something new and allowing to do some co-teaching or to do some training so that we get to that point where people are saying, yeah, this is great. Let's add this to what we are actually already doing and seeing the benefits of what we do. Like you said before, kind of addressing that digital divide. If we can provide more resources for students, or we have some of these tools available for them to use at school in that safe way, they can use it for what they need for their school purposes. They understand how to use it at home or teach their home, whether it's their parents, their grandparents, they can help with that as well. So, and it's still ongoing. So we're going to see how this develops. Like you said, I'm excited to see kind of that robotics piece come in eventually in the future as well. Like I mentioned before, one of the things that we want to also address is some of that bias that comes in because it feeds through things that are already available on the internet. As we know, the internet is, you know, it's not biased at all in some places. So we have to make sure that that's something we're teaching our kids about and really thinking about what the teachers are feeding. That's why kind of at that elementary level, we're starting out without doing some feedback pieces to kind of see how it goes at the upper level. So we're not feeding in those pieces for those kids that are under 13 especially, and making sure that we know what the AI has access to along with what kind of data we provided. We had fun activity in our AI meeting this week with Tim, where we were last week, where we were talking about the garage sale, and it was able to identify that he wanted to buy some food from the Lions truck at the Waunakee garage sale or close to it, Waunakee. So just knowing what kinds of information we feed and not just allowing students and teachers to just dump things in there, really thinking about what information do I want this to have and what information do I take from it. So it's kind of, those are those questions on the end of what is meaningful and valid demonstration of learning. So we're kind of thinking about how can we use that to do some of that brainstorming piece? So you're not just looking at that blank screen and not knowing what to do. How can students start citing things as we come into more guidance from how to cite with using AI? And obviously, the last question, when is it appropriate to introduce students to AI? That's something at the elementary level we are really considering. How can we start teaching this to kids? Because they don't necessarily have access to it outside of our space when they're not 13. And so really focusing on the piece of like identifying what is information, what's misinformation, how do we know what's true? Figuring out if there is some of that bias, that's kind of the lessons we're starting out in the elementary, some with our coding. How can we train our little robot to clean up the ocean by identifying what's trash and what's not? So that's kind of the level we're at the elementary. As we go up through the intermediate, like Sarah was saying, starting to think about what photos are we looking at? Is it a true image? Is it something that's been altered? How do creators feel about having their work pulled in and potentially copied through the AI? So that's kind of that progress that we're going to go through in the next, as we saw in the timeline, to go through and figure out how to add that curriculum into our district so that we are ready for those students when they get to those levels where they're going to be using more AI to produce their work. So I think Tim, is that, oh, I got one more. So I kind of already talked about this a little bit, we've already started stage one where we're creating some of those policies. We're looking at how we're going to address any issues that come up with that or how to teach students and really have those big conversations. We're in this stage as well, kind of in stage two, making sure we're using those early adopters and really getting into some of the, pulling those teachers in that are really going to get excited about it and show the benefits. And stage three is what we're moving towards, trying to see where we can improve our handbook language, our lessons that we're using for teaching AI to our students and staff, and really moving it into that next step as things can continue to develop. So, any questions on our ethics piece? Before we move into the last one, which is Tim's slide.
Yeah, and this is just a closer.
I did link it in here for you so that we can see it a little bit bigger.
Awesome, great. So this is just our current staff guidelines that we have provided. You know, this is the third. We issued them initially in August. We reissued them with some adjustments in November to give clear guidance on how to use plagiarism detection primarily and to reinforce student privacy. And then, you know, here in April. And in here, this is the handbook language that you approved as a board last June for the middle school and high school student handbooks. And then this part down here is just providing some suggestions for teachers about how to, if they were to permit kids to use AI, how we would like them to step through that so it could be done successfully. We are way along on time and we have two really important presentations to come up. So I guess, you know, first of all, I want to thank our team. They've been doing lots of great work all through the school year to support our teachers in this. I guess I would encourage you as a committee, take some time, reflect on what you've heard. Go back and look at the slide deck. It's very meaty. There's a lot in there. And then maybe circle back with feedback at our next meeting. Do you as a committee need more information? What are your additional questions for us? Is this something that might be a whole board development piece? I think just for time and for the amount of information that's been shared with you, I would suggest we kind of wrap this item for today and come back to it later.
Thank you so much.
Great job. Very great job. Thank you. And thank you to our other hardworking staff who we're here through our AI. Our next item is a really exciting topic, which is Michelle McGlynn coming in to share with us some amazing work that she's been doing about the education career pathway. So we'll let Michelle get settled in, wait for Katie to get back, and then we will get into this.
Michelle, did you bring any morels with you?
Like we do know to go to Muscadet, which I don't know if you know where Muscadet is, but it's Morel Mushroom Weekend.
Is it this weekend?
It is this weekend.
How is it?
Well, I haven't found any, but I haven't also went out looking either. But there at Steinmark's dad found 5 pounds.
It's a busy time of year for
So-
Michelle McGlynn.
Yeah,
I wish- Someone needs to go find me some though.
well, pre-pandemic, I know Pex
Thank you.
sold them.
Yes.
I don't know if they still do.
Well, if you're willing to pay, I
Oh,
think you can get them.
I am.
You can, if you find them, you can charge like $50 a pound, so.
Yeah,
I think we'll wait for Katie to get back, but, you know, I'll just fill a little bit of time. You know, Joan, you were able last month to attend, you know, something that Michelle and her fellow school, the career coordinators across the county do for us, which is our our Dane County Schools Consortium Youth Apprenticeship Recognition. And you saw so many industry sectors represented there. And next year you will see a new industry sector represented there, which is one that's really important to us. And that will be the education pathway. And I think I'll give it another minute or two, but you want us to wait?
I think we should
I think we should.
begin.
Okay.
Let's
Go ahead.
She should be back. I know it's late, but.
Absolutely fine.
Let's provide an opportunity to look through the handouts too.
Sure. Interesting reading.
That was a long presentation.
Yeah.
Mine is a little shorter. So most of you know me. I'm Michelle McGlynn. I'm the Career and Tech Ed Coordinator for the district. And so the thing that I wanted to talk to you about today is an opportunity that we have to expand a little bit of our curriculum offering specifically to help support students who want to go into the field of elementary or secondary education. So to kind of give you a little bit of background, I was at a administrator meeting with Madison College just a few weeks ago. They do these roundtables. And they were sharing information on all their dual credit offerings. And so you know that Waunakee High School, we have quite a few dual credit offerings currently. And me, I'm always looking at what else can we do. And so as I'm looking through the list of other opportunities and seeing one on there for ag, one on there for tech ed, and thinking about reaching out to those teachers and what to offer, I noticed that that Madison College has 2 education courses specific to students who are going into K-12 education. And so when I looked at the requirements to teach the dual credit courses, for these specific courses, it was a teacher who has a master's degree in education specifically for teacher preparation. And so I kind of thought about our own staff and like teacher preparation, it kind of gets hung up in curriculum and instruction pieces like that. Classroom teachers aren't going to really have that. So I submitted what I have done with my education and administrator degree to Madison College, and they said, well, we don't really see teacher preparation in like the classes that you've taken and the degrees that you have. And so I said, well, understand that. How about this? For the last 9 years, I've taught for Concordia, Stout, and Whitewater at the university system level to prepare teachers to come into the teaching world. And they said, oh, sure, you can teach these courses. So I was able to get approval. So then I took my idea to Tim and to Brian Borowski. So that's what I'm presenting to you today. So that's kind of how this idea started. So Madison College offers 2 different courses through their curriculum. One is called Introduction to Education and Teaching, and the other one is called Education in a Pluralistic Society. And I specifically remember in my undergrad work at UW Whitewater back in 2003, that both of these courses were something that I had to take as part of my teacher prep. And so I was excited to see these because obviously with Madison College, it would be dual credit, but it also can transfer as part of their program into maybe 4-year colleges where students are pursuing a 4-year college degree for teacher prep. And so I went to Madison College and I said, hey, can I deliver these online? And they said, sure. So I said, okay, even better, because I don't have time to teach a class with what I'm doing. So can I deliver these online? And they approved that.
And so my idea, and part of this, as Tim kind of alluded to, is we now have a new pathway for education that is sponsored by the Department of Workforce Development in the state of Wisconsin. And so we have students who are now going to be able to go into K-12 education as an apprentice. They need to be paid, they have to meet the hour requirement, and the other piece of it is they have to have related coursework. Our limitation at the high school is that when we look at what we offer for career and tech ed in the education realm, we have childcare 1 and childcare 2, which is geared towards early education, early, like age 4 and under, daycares, things like that. So we don't really have any related courses. So can I send my students to Madison College under our Start College Now program? Absolutely, they could take these 2 courses. But that also costs the district $500 or $600 per student per semester to take those 3 credit courses. So if I can offer it dual credit with their curriculum, but our, a little tweak to it to what we want to do, it can be supporting those students. It can also support, we've now grown this pipeline of students who want to go into education as part of our future educator program. So what I plan on doing is offering this as an independent study for students next year, specific to just the students who will be in the youth apprenticeship program or the future educator internship program. And then for the following year, I will work on putting everything together for full board approval as a new course. It will be delivered in a hybrid format where everything is offered online through Schoology, which you just learned about. But then I would use contact times to do the personal one-on-one meetings with them as part of probably the course offering. For the Introduction to Education and Teaching course, there's a requirement students have to have 50 hours of observation, which works perfectly with the youth apprenticeship or the internship program because they're going to be spending 450 hours for the year with a teacher in our district. I worked with Brian Grabarski over the last several months to get approval to pay youth apprentices within our district. So not only will we now have marketing students, warrior media students who are apprentices, but now we will have education students that are going to be apprentices. We have 7 applicants. The district is willing to pay up to 6. So that's the world that I'm working in right now. So what I wanted to bring to you is this idea of being able to offer these 2 education courses as dual credit as an independent study for next year, and then coming to full, any student can enroll in them and continue doing it, offering it online. So I kind of went over. So the why, I think I covered all of that with my glasses on. So the savings to the district was a big one that I wanted to try to tackle. When we look at the stakeholders, obviously I mentioned that we have 7 students who are already applied to the Education Youth Apprenticeship Program. We have about 3 or 5 more students that will probably be interns, which will be unpaid positions, and similar to the program I've been running with them for the last 3-4 years, where we've had numerous students each year who are interning. And our building principals have been super supportive, and our district elementary and intermediate teachers have been amazing mentors to these students. Of course, I will be the teacher of record and be working with Madison College doing all the dual credit pieces to get students dual certified in those pieces. And then looking forward, one of the things that I did want to mention is because this is going to be fairly unique, and most districts are not going to offer these classes. I think there's only 2 or 3 in the county that are going to do dual credit with Madison College for this. That opens up the opportunity for some of that partial open enrollment for a DeForest, a Middleton, a Sun Prairie to say, hey, Waunakee as a teacher, they're doing this. We can save probably money from doing this from Start College Now, do partial open enrollment, have them go with me. We can certainly pursue, is this something that can go on when? I don't know how that all works, but we will have those conversations later. But just looking ahead, I think there'll be some opportunities to have that grow and provide that opportunity for our students that want to go to education, which all of you know, if you know me, you know I'm super passionate about getting students into our pipeline to be teachers, so.
Well, it's exciting to hear about another apprenticeship opportunity. The whole concept is very exciting. So through the course you're offering, they'll get a total, if they take both courses, 6 credits. That could apply wherever they go, plus their 3/4 credits for the high school.
Yep, they would count as electives towards their elective pool towards graduation. And they would walk out of there with a transcript from Madison College with 6 college credits. That is not gonna cost the district any money because they won't have to do it through Start College now. So really the only expense for this will be us buying textbooks, which even through Start College now, we do the textbooks for the students, so.
I think this is great.
This
I
is,
appreciate you taking the initiative to do it, so it's it, and they're fantastic mentor for them, and this solves a lot of problems, and I think it's awesome.
Now, we don't typically bring specific apprenticeship programs or independent studies in for approval. So this is here as an information item. We're going to be moving forward with this.
Okay, so you don't need a motion.
Don't need a motion, but when we formalize this with an actual course request coming through in the fall, that'll be an action item for you. And I can't thank Michelle enough for her initiative on this and really the expertise. Our kids are going to be in outstanding hands.
Yeah.
The other thing I really like about this, and there's so many things to like about this, is the mode of delivery with the hybrid virtual. Again, there's reasons on the instructor side where that makes sense, but when you've got busy juniors and seniors who do have to be in the classrooms and working, and that can only happen at part of the day. This is not like some apprenticeships where you might be in the evenings.
Right.
This is having that virtual flexibility, I think, is another real positive aspect of Michelle's designs.
It's an interesting model too for other opportunities for learning from the district, for some, whatever. Thank you.
Well, and it's exciting to have a foundation for growing teachers.
Yes.
Last night I was at the event and I think there were at least 3, the scholarship recipients are education major next year, but to hear we got 7 already, I mean, and then, yeah, that's very exciting.
my concern, Michelle, is you are a very busy woman, and now you've just added 2 courses to your plate.
Tim has had conversations with me.
I
Keeps
want
an eye
you
on things.
to, know that I mean, this is phenomenal, but you gotta take care of them, Michelle.
Yeah, I do. I'm really excited about it. I will, the putting this together will spend, will be over the summer and I'll work pretty closely with Penny Johnson, who ironically was my mentor when we did all the business ed dual credit classes. So she was our kind of teacher of record at Madison College. So I've worked with her before. So I will spend time during my summer hours that I work. I work all summer except for a month, to design this, and then hopefully it'll be, I've taken the online piece off my plate. I'll take this on, but this is really important to me, and I'm hoping that, I work on time management, and
Yeah.
Youth apprenticeship is growing significantly, so we'll, have those conversations, and at some point down the road, hopefully I can tap into, the administrative assistant in the counseling office to do some of the
Yeah.
data work.
Yeah.
I actually had a brainy idea that, for my youth apprenticeship program, I could hire somebody to do administrative professional,
Yeah.
and do
creative.
that, but then my thought was the confidentiality of so many pieces of working with students. And what do I give them to do that doesn't cross that line, and would I have enough stuff to give them? So I'm brainstorming ideas, but yeah,
Well,
so.
When Michelle
Yeah,
first
so
introduced
is
this,
That as you've been, I mean, there's the appetite for more youth apprenticeship is just gonna grow. And I think you have to make a management decision. When do we need additional FTE?
Yeah.
And I
Yes.
can't help but believe the board will not support if you come and say, with this growth, we need X.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, you need that support from us.
this is a regular, I mean, not monthly, but we visit on this some because Michelle does so much for us, so many outstanding things, and it is a field that's growing, and it's great to see it growing. But I mean, I'll paraphrase this, but when Michelle floated this to me, she said, I think you may have questions around this, but And I said, well, I love it, but exactly what you shared, Joan, but as Michelle referenced, she used to do a ton of our e-school work. We have an e-school and assessment coordinator at the high school now, and Katie Varney, who's doing an outstanding job. And so that's allowed Michelle to, keep
Dial back.
handing more over. And you may not remember this, but even though Michelle's area isn't tech ed, she is our Skills USA advisor this year. But you were able to hire a very promising young tech ed teacher a month ago, and we anticipate he will be taking over Skills USA. So that'll be another
Yes.
relinquished responsibility for
I
Michelle.
promised to mentor him for a year, but then I will step away from Skills USA again. I know, it's. If it wasn't, if I didn't love all of it, I would, not be sitting here asking you to give me some more things to do for our students. So,
It
yes.
shows you love it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So I
Thank you.
appreciate all of your support, because honestly, that is a huge piece of this, is that the district support, the board support, the staff support, all of it for these programs and for what the students are doing, because they're putting in all the hard work. And as I go out and do all these meetings now to finish up our seniors, and I hear about the students who are moving into registered apprenticeships, and I hear about the students who are getting into pre-scholar dental programs that only 10 students get in a year nationwide. And for 2 years in a row, we have 2 students that are getting into Marquette Dental because of the youth apprenticeship. Like, those are the reasons that keep me going. I'm like, yes. And yes, I will ask when I need some help. And it may be sooner versus
Yes,
later
maybe.
based on the number of students that I have this year going into next year. I literally went from 25 students, 27 students last year, 56 this year. And next year, we've got 21 that are returning, and I've got 70 applications to find placements for. So we're growing. We're not quite as big as McFarland, but we are getting there. So, but we are the second biggest in Dane County as far as placements. So, yeah.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
thank
Thank you
you.
for your support.
Yeah,
Appreciate it.
Thank you very much, Michelle.
Yeah, I'm very excited.
And finally,
Middle school ELA.
thank you for your patience.
Absolutely.
Makes for a very long day,
ALA
but
speaks to the ELA, and I had intern this year in my classroom, so it was all connected, so.
Hey, and if you have another one, it might be paid. Where she's paid, they're here, she is paid.
Bring it on in.
I will.
Here's our slides. Oh, and I have this too.
so we're joined by two of our very fine staff from our middle school. It's coming. It's here. Nope, that's the quote. Let's go to the,
Okay. So it's.
this one, I believe. Yes, this is the one. Yep.
There we go.
Okay, so I think you're fairly well known, but if both of you fine educators could introduce yourself to the committee, that'd be a great way to start, and then into the presentation.
All right, sounds good. I am Lynn Stenruse. I know pretty much everyone at the table for a very long time, actually. I am the instructional coach at the middle school, and I'm also the building coordinator for ELA.
And my name is Stephanie Boyk. I teach 8th grade ELA at the middle school, and I am also the chair for the 7-12 ELA department. This is the second year.
So we have been through a really exciting point in, I think, our middle school history this past year. And all of our ELA teachers have been involved in this. And so tonight we would like to take you through our ELA curriculum pilot procedure that we have undergone. And as the agenda states in front of you, when we are done tonight, we hope you have a thorough understanding of the why, the criteria that we used in order to both set forth our pilot and the choices that we made for the pilot, the process of the pilot, and then our selection and the rationale that we base that on. So let's jump in. We really found a need for high quality instructional materials at the middle school for ELA for several reasons. First of all, in looking at when our new ELA standards were revised, and we did a deep dive into where our curriculum was currently, we knew that we needed a more rigorous and consistent curriculum across both grade levels. We also know that the board has a real lofty goal of getting back to those pre-pandemic levels, and our own building goal also mirrors that same. We all want to bring our kids back to those levels before the pandemic, but also, as we know, we have struggled with our middle school ELA students showing growth as a whole. And so that is definitely one of those high level reasons of why we feel the need for instructional materials. We also know that we need materials that are accessible for all our learners, and that includes our EL students, our newcomers, our students who are in special ed, but also then extension opportunities for students who are beyond grade level. We know that we want materials that are research-based and aligned with our standards, and that they incorporate all aspects of ELA, the reading, the writing, the listening, the speaking, and vocabulary development, as well as grammar and conventions. And also that whole idea that not only being research-based and aligned with the standards, but also rooted in that science of reading as well, that we hear a great deal about now within the last couple of years, especially with the new legislation that has passed and that has had a big impact, especially on our K-4 teachers. So when we entered into this process, what we did, you have in front of you a criteria selection tool, which we called our evaluation tool. And we set forth criteria based on some really high level indicators of what our vision looks like for our middle school ELA students, which also is in conjunction with DPI's vision for ELA instruction. Some of those which were also highlighted in our reasoning and our why of why we need these materials. So we wanted to make sure, of course, that they were research-based, standards aligned, and also that they were green on ed reports. In other words, meaning that they were fully vetted and anchored both in the science of reading and in research that is out there. So we started by using this evaluation tool, and we did a lot of work behind the scenes in terms of looking at different publishers. It was interesting because there are not a plethora of publishers out there that have high quality instructional materials for middle school. And so through the work that we did, we were able to find the ones that really rose to the level in which we thought deemed appropriate to bring in for presentations. So in May of last year, around this time, we hosted these curriculum presentations from the publishers that you see in front of you. So Amplify, ARC, which is the American Reading Company, Wit and Wisdom, Open Up Resources, My Perspectives, HMH, which is Harcourt, Heinemann, Houghton, Mifflin, and Harcourt. I always get that mixed up because it used to just be Houghton, Mifflin, and Harcourt was Harcourt and Brace back in the 1990s. So not to date myself. Units of Study, which is the Lucy Hawkins, and then Unbound Ed. Some which are open source resources and some which actually have digital platforms that are purchased or have hard copies. And so that is who we brought in. And then we moved into our actual, oops, is that me? we moved into our actual pilot process once we selected. So in May, using that evaluation tool, we were a team of our ELA teachers. We had representation from special ed as well as our EL teachers. And we used the tool to rate each of those presentations and take a look at the materials. We have a book closet that was literally full of resources that teachers spent time scouring and looking through. And then we voted using that evaluation tool. 2 rows very clearly to the top. It was a pretty easy decision after we were able to see the materials and have the presentation. Amplify and My Perspectives are those 2 that were selected. So then we actually moved into the actual pilot. I think it's a time for me to acknowledge the heavy lift and all of the work that went into that on as far as our teaching staff goes. Because every ELA teacher was involved in the pilot. Every ELA teacher piloted both materials. They piloted Amplify and they piloted My Perspectives. And that's a great deal of change for our teachers to take part in 1 year, especially being 2 different programs, which had different approaches and even different platforms. For our Amplify, we used the digital platform, and for My Perspectives, it's more of a hybrid, and we used the hard copy, so to speak, the text, which also comes with a digital platform as well. They both, 7th and 8th, piloted a reading unit in all of their sections, and 8th grade is actually still piloting a unit in Amplify, which is for expository writing. And the reading program or reading units that were piloted were both very rigorous, yes. We also used and implemented peer observations. And so during this time, it wasn't just the piloting that was taking place, but it was also embedded professional development. They would go into each other's rooms and watch each other teach both of the programs to kind of see the ins and outs. And we also had discussions, again, including special ed and EL, where we were using the pilot evaluation tool to facilitate those discussions. And it really helped us speak across grade levels in terms of our common findings, and also the opportunities to look at what challenges might exist, what things do we need to keep in mind in terms of planning, ease of teacher use, and things in that order. In January of 24, that is when we finished with Amplify and we began the pilot for My Perspectives. When we started Amplify in October, we had a trainer come in and do the training for our teachers. And then in January, we also had a My Perspectives training. And then we launched those units. For My Perspectives, 7 and 8 piloted an argumentative writing unit. And again, same type of cycle ensued. We had those continued discussions, we had some professional development, and we used that evaluation tool to help facilitate and guide those instructions. As far as the literature, before I pass this over to Steph, for the Amplify training, just to give you an idea of what that looked like, the texts are very robust. They're they're rigorous. 7th grade was all anchored in the works of Poe, and 8th grade was in Mary Shelley's Frankenstein with a graphic novel. And the kids loved it.
You would never think that would be the most engaging, well, maybe, but
But
I
it was.
just loved the graphic novel listening.
Thanks, Lynn. And now, that kind of brings us to, May, when things were kind of winding down and we had to start thinking about, what came of those discussions across grade levels, after having a series of conversations with both SPED and EL. We were actually fortunate enough to be able to take, a half day, each as a grade level team, to look at both programs thoroughly, just because we had only piloted one unit from Amplify, which was a reading unit, and then had only really piloted the one writing unit from My Perspectives. We wanted to go in and use this tool with having just a better idea of what else was offered. You know, how did those skills progress over the course of the other units? Was the language consistent? How did we see things building upon a previous unit? My Perspectives is launching somewhat of a new edition, and so their digital platform is going to be all completely new from what we had just learned. They were coming out with a new teacher resource as well as the student workbook. So we just wanted to have a better idea before we went in and actually use this tool. And again, just to reiterate, this was along with our SPED team, or members from our SPED team, as well as our EL teachers. After having a better understanding of both, then we were able to conduct some surveys again across all of those same people involved to get a feel for, out of all of these 8 areas of criteria, how did we prioritize them? Was there one that was rising to the top as the team deemed most important, or something that we just really wanted to ensure was present in whatever we were voting on? Combined with the results of what the teachers had reported, we also used an adaptive schools strategy called Spend a Buck, where we were then able to, again, just have actually a visual of, you know, if I only had $1, where would I put, you know, the bulk of my money? Would it be behind, you know, that it's engaging for students, or do I find something like rigor or depth of knowledge to be a little bit more important? So we really just wanted to ensure that all teachers had a voice in this process, and that they could see that their input was being valued and was brought to the table for the final vote. Oops. Which I know this is somewhat small. I wonder if there's a way to, can I zoom in a little bit?
See the little, Lola's, I think, gonna move it up for us then.
There we go. So in May, on the first, actually, we met for the final vote. And this was where we were able to use this evaluation tool one final time to really assess both Amplify and My Perspectives. And using the weight, so to speak, of where the team felt. So that second column there is what the team felt was most important, or what we wanted to see the most of in whatever program was selected. So supporting all of our learners was up there right on above engaging for all students. And so all of the members that were present were able to take one final vote. And then along with the weight that we distributed to each of those criteria, you can kind of see how Amplify versus My Perspectives landed. Amplify rose to the forefront pretty early on as the results were trickling in. It scored the highest rating in rigor, depth of knowledge, and I think it kind of cuts off. So under that umbrella, we're also included the diversity of perspectives offered in the mentor texts and all of the stories and whole class novels that we'd be reading, as well as college and career readiness. So that was kind of all one piece. And its lowest rating was in vocabulary development, construction of knowledge, and Greek and Latin roots. To kind of dig into that, Amplify does offer an accessory vocabulary program, and it also has some grammar subunits embedded. These weren't necessarily part of the pilot process, but after we had more time to really dig into some of these supplemental materials that it offered, that's really part of our job as professionals to really look at how do these pieces of grammar and conventions fit in within the larger units that Amplify has. There's a really great vocabulary app that the kids really love, as well as embedded vocabulary, especially given the rigor of the texts. I mean, in in Shelley's Frankenstein, I mean, there was a lot for us to really work through and talk through, especially in the area of Greek and Latin roots. So again, this is just part of our work as PLTs to just make sure that we are consistently incorporating that material that's already there into those units. So when it comes to the rationale here, they got it. Okay, I got it. Thank you, my cursor. Thank you. So when it came down, you know, we looked at the two weights, and really, I think along with how the team felt, the rationale, I mean, really speaks for itself. It not only supports our middle school goal, which is focusing on literacy and again, just increasing student growth at the middle school, which Lynn spoke to earlier, has just been something that we've struggled with. Our kids are seeming to plateau at that 7-8 level, and we really want to see our kids continue to grow over the course of our time with them. Amplify certainly aligns with the board's goal of regaining pre-pandemic levels of student proficiency on state assessments. And it really connects to the district's commitment to our work in professional learning communities. Just because when you move from teacher-created content to something like Amplify, the common assessments, both formative and summative, are there. It's not something that we have to go out and create and then take time to, you know, sort through exit tickets and looking through student assessments, because not only are the common formative and summatives embedded, but there is some element of, not to pull in AI, but there is some AI evaluation and grading involved in Amplify. So the timing is just works so much better for us to make decisions regarding instruction, how to utilize our intervention time during WIN. You know, I can quick sort my students to see who got this lesson, who maybe needs a reteaching, who can I extend and offer some enrichment upon. And so it just allowed us to move away from using that protected time from planning lessons to actually using the information and using the data that we had to make decisions for instruction and how to best intervene on our students' behalf. And again, just it allows us to really answer those questions 3 and 4 of the PLC. You know, what am I going to do if my students don't know? And what am I going to do when they clearly do know? Instead of having to go out and find something, there's something already there that is timely and that is so engaging, so rigorous, and the timing, again, I can't speak enough about how helpful that was. And last but not least, we also wanted to give the students somewhat of a say, you know, not the only thing that we were considering, but we did feel there's a lot of value in hearing from our kids, especially being that we flip-flopped this year through 2 very different programs. And they love to share their thoughts as well. And so it was a 60-40, I think was the split. And we did allow students to share just some general feedback or comments towards the end of the pilot process. And some of the things that rose to the top regarding Amplify, their digital platform is just phenomenal. It's so user-friendly both from the teachers end as well as for our students. It was something that they picked up very quickly. Amplify is rooted in student discourse from the beginning of a lesson to the end of the lesson. And so there were so many opportunities for kids to collaborate with a variety of students. Not just, who they were seated by, but there was ongoing collaboration. There was discussion, both in a small sense, in a whole group setting as well. And they particularly loved the debates, of course. They wanted more of them, and I think in our unit in Frankenstein, our kids had at least 3 debates, and that's something that we hadn't really been able to bring into 8th grade prior to this. And the students also commented on just, again, engagement of the materials, the way in which it was presented, the things that they were asked to do was challenging, was rigorous, and they certainly rose to the occasion. And we saw growth within that one unit that we had piloted, which was really great to see in a span of 5 to 10 weeks. That's all that we have on our end.
I just have a question about, this is awesome. So, you guys worked really hard to come up with a really great program for students. Will this translate into the advanced English classes as well? Will they use Amplify too?
Yes, they will. That's a great question. As a matter of fact, our 8th grade students, they did pilot. The advanced students did use the pilot in 8th grade, and it was very robust. And I know that the teacher was really pleasantly surprised, and that was really amazing to see.
It has some embedded differentiation, so you can place students in different instructional levels. So if I have students that maybe require sentence stems, so they don't just stare at that blank page, it's just seamless, and you can do it kind of in the moment. And so there's a challenge instructional level as well, and I believe he had all advanced students in that challenge level. So the amount that they had to write, what they were asked to do was a little bit more insightful, a little bit more student generated, and he was able to use that entire unit to kind of his expectations of advanced English.
Yeah, at the needs.
Yes, yes.
2 things I'd like to share along those lines to add on to, what Stephanie and Lynn shared is, not that we measure everything by iReady, but that is the standardized local assessment we administer at the middle school. And we're done with iReady testing except for makeups right now. And Lynn and I had a few minutes today where we were able to go in and look at some of our reading growth data, which is up from last year, including in the advanced English section. So, I mean, by the iReady measure, that's a favorable sign. And I think the other thing, just to speak to the rigor, and you saw that rigor was one of the areas where Amplify really created some separation from itself with the other resource. And this is a conversation I've already had with Walter Stentz, the high school coordinator, is right now we do Romeo and Juliet in 9th grade. That is an 8th grade text in the Amplify adoption. Cask of Amontillado, I mean, Lynn mentioned the Poe, that's been a staple of our 9th grade English course. That goes down to 7th grade in this program. So, this is really exciting content, very well presented, but very, very challenging content for middle school. So I think it's really going to give our students some really exciting opportunities.
I really loved how the feedback from the students was, one of the things they liked about it was that it was challenging.
Yeah.
They
Right.
like that.
Right.
I really have to compliment you on the thoughtfulness, the intentionality, the composite assessment. I don't think we've ever had a pilot that brought in student reaction to it. Also that all the staff actually utilize the pilot is very impressive. I also recognize that you're still alive after doing a pilot. And
They worked very hard this year.
we're talking a lot of change for your department,
Yeah.
and that's not an easy thing to give up what we've been doing, and so to get that kind of a reaction is very impressive with the process that you use, the tools for assessment. I mean, it's all, I'm extremely pleased, and I've done surface scratching of research on science of reading and amplifies like the standard, and so I'm thrilled that that's a choice your staff discovered through your work. And so compliments to all of you for the hard work, the thoroughness. Yeah, wonderfully done.
Thank you. I think it was it certainly was a change for a lot of the ways in which we think, but I mean, we talk about this all the time, how much it changed just how we even interact as a department, as a PLT. I think we all have to be a little vulnerable when you're looking at each other fumbling through something that's brand new, and it just really changed the dynamic in our department in a really positive way, so. It
But
was,
with the expanded hours or minutes,
Yes.
hours, well, it's hours over time,
Yeah.
but with the expanded minutes, you're gonna, the additional tools that you said are with this may make that transition a lot easier,
yes,
so.
yes. Do we need a motion to?
So actually, we will need two motions.
Okay.
The first motion will be to accept the recommendation and the quote that's in there, which will definitely fit within our textbook budget. But in part because of, and Amy had a scheduling conflict, so she couldn't be here tonight. The intermediate school will be taking a different kind of pilot look, but kind of like an early look, pilot look at Amplify next year. And so there is a quote, there's a second quote in there that's for the intermediate school. We would ask that we have affirmatives on both of those and move it to the board, the full board, I should say.
So motion.
See, that was a kind of a steep quote for a pilot, I thought, is that?
We
is
thought
that
the
becoming
same.
the norm now?
So, here's what happened, and Amy has worked with our representative, and the rep has
Right.
sharpened their pencil. Here's the thing, we have our grade configuration, and most of the world works on a K5, 6, 8 grade configuration. We had a cost contribution for the middle school pilot too, and the 6th grade aspect of the intermediate quote very closely aligns up with the cost contribution we pay going into this year for the 7-8 Amplify. But the design of, for Amplify, 6-8 is one set of materials, and actually K5, so it's actually 5th grade piloting the last grade of their K5 resource, and 6th grade piloting the first grade of their 6-8 resource. And just the design of the K5 resource is much, as you might expect for an elementary ELA package, less digital and much more physical books. And once we get those physical books into our hands for the pilot, they will never be brand new again. And so that is the 5th grade arm that's driving up the cost of the pilot in that book. But we can cover that. But that's why it's a little dear.
Okay,
In 5th grade, will all the teachers pilot?
No. No, it'll be a sampling approach. Yeah. I mean, I think the key thing to understand is that the middle school is a little different from the lower grades. I mean, at the middle school, Stephanie teaches English, and that's what Stephanie teaches. So you can have the entire team pilot one resource, or half the team pilot one and half the other, and you're still not going to get to double digits on teachers. And for different reasons, I've got a little bias. And again, because the team is so small, to maintain the integrity of the professional learning team, a lot of similarity so they can maintain consistency for the kids. It looks different when you get down to the intermediate school, where you might have 14, 15 teachers per grade level, or even to the elementary. So we have to design our pilots differently in recognition. And you'll see that when you see our pilot plan next month for intermediate and middle school mathematics. We'll be piloting the same resources, but the design is going to look a little different at the middle school than it will look at intermediate, just because of how the schools are organized.
So motion to move forward with Amplify as the recommended curriculum resource for middle school.
Mhm.
Move that to the board. Is that? Motion?
Yes,
And-
thank you. We should vote on that first and then bring in the other.
Right.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
And now a second motion,
A second motion or a motion to accept the cost of both Amplify and the pilot.
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Stephanie,
Wow,
thank you.
thank
Lynn,
you.
Thank you so much.
And your patience, you.
It's very exciting. You know, I saw Rick
I learned
geek
a
out a
lot.
little about tech. I'm geeking out over this.
That way, I think. It seems like it's coming at a good time with the change in the length of the period.
It
I
is,
hope
it's
you feel
perfect.
that way, that it's, you don't have to do it twice, you don't have to teach it in smaller chunks and then longer.
Most definitely, yes, build for a 50 to 60 minutes.
And that's.
Yeah, Right,
Right.
so, yep, it'll be perfect. Thank you, have a good evening.
Thank you both. And again, thank you to your colleagues for all the
Yes.
work you've invested getting us to this point.
Oh,
Because it was a big lift, but it's gonna have huge payoff for our students.
Thank you.
So, this might be a record for the
Uh-huh.
committee. Welcome aboard, Joan.
I don't know why I got on this committee.
You should take that up with the president, Joe.
So I was going to recommend that we would actually bypass June and July and meet in August, but particularly with the AI.
Mhm.
I really don't want to put that off, so I'd like to meet in June yet and to reflect on AI. I would like to suggest that you and Amy come back with maybe some key things that maybe you think we need to get, so that we could put a calendar together in August. And then the same thing with our committee members. Are there any things that we'd like to explore further, and which that could be AI, if you want something different or more, or what you think about presenting that to the board. But in terms of being able to calendar things, maybe suggestions that you'd like us to look at, and then and then I would suggest we don't need to meet in July.
So you want the suggestions in June, or should we talk about those now?
I think we need to come back in June simply as a response
Yeah.
to the AI thing. I hate to be reflecting and then
And-
we're 2 months down the road and, oh God, what did I really want?
And we also do have some, believe it or not, after this long meeting, we still have some time sensitive items for June.
Yeah, plus
can
we
take
were,
July off.
yeah, and we're gonna hear from the pilot people or not?
So what will happen, so what we do need in June, I think coming back to the AI is super timely. We will need to bring our draft assessment schedule into you like we typically do in June. We will be bringing in our recommended items for the intermediate and middle school math pilot for next year, similar as we had that Amplify for the intermediate school year.
Okay,
And then the other thing, which as Janelle Dorn and I met this week, we realized is by policy now we have an annual pathways report. So Janelle.
oh,
will
we
be
do have a
coming
lot
in.
of them, okay.
Yeah, I mean, we'll still have time to talk. The AI was a big topic tonight and it went large on time. We won't be doing 2 hours in June. I can,
Okay.
we'll protect you from that.
Sounds good.
But we do need to schedule a date. And I guess the one thing I would say would be best would be if we could perhaps look at, and actually, given what we're doing, and once we're into June, it could happen in the morning or the afternoon. But Monday, the 17th, or Tuesday. No, not Monday, the 17th, or Wednesday, the 19th. Could be good dates, morning or
I'm gone that week.
gone that week, okay? Well, I would, so Janelle is taking our future problem solvers to Indiana, and she isn't going to be back until the days that overlap with the admin retreat in that second week of June. So is everybody available the third week of June?
That is,
That's-
we,
yeah.
I mean, I'm sorry, the fourth, the week of the 24th, my bad, get
I-
soft,
I am not.
okay?
When's the board retreat?
board retreat is on the 17th of July.
I don't know, I have it down. That's on the 17th.
Is it too late to meet the first week of July?
So I don't know about availability.
Okay.
What we
When
could,
is Janelle back?
she
The
comes
17th?
back on the 11th, but then we have admin retreat the 12th and 13th.
Oh, I did retreat, I'm sorry.
Right.
Okay. What
Um,
about,
14th.
I mean, we could do Friday, the 14th. That could be an option. I need to confirm with Janelle, but I think it would work for her.
That could work.
morning,
Earlier in the morning.
Yeah. early morning?
I could do anytime that way.
Why don't we do 8 o'clock on the 14th? Is that early or would 9 be better? Huh?
Could we do 7:30?
7:30 is fine with me.
I will check with Janelle, but she wouldn't have to be here at
She's up at
7:30.
4:30 in the morning. I know that for a fact. But I
Okay,
don't know if she's busy before till 7:30.
I'll tell her Mark said it would be no problem at all. Janelle. So,
7:30.
I like the idea of 7:30, the, Friday morning, the 14th. Because really, I mean, Amy and I can carry all of this, but we need Janelle for the pathways.
Yeah.
And if, yeah,
Well, she could come later.
You
Yeah.
come late.
yeah, 8:30 might work for her. I
Can
mean, we're
motion
not-
to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Got a lot done. I know we went long, but those were some very large rocks.
What?
I can't say enough positive about the work of all of the educators. I mean, you can see how hard
Oh,
people
gosh.
work at this stuff.
And all the stuff that's going up AI, I mean, it blows my socks off.
It's, I think the biggest thing
I
is.
mean, I saw the